The office feels stifling today. The hum of computers, the soft murmurs of conversations, and the distant ring of phones blend into a dull background noise. But I can't shake the feeling that something is off. I glance at the clock on my desk, watching the seconds tick by slowly. My mind drifts to Claire, my wife. I think about the way she used to greet me at the door with a smile, the way she would curl up next to me on the couch after a long day. Lately, though, things have been different. There's a distance between us that I can't quite bridge. Work has consumed me, and the passion we once shared seems to have faded into a comfortable but cold routine. I rub my temples, trying to focus on the reports in front of me, but my thoughts keep wandering back to Claire. Is it my fault? Have I been too absorbed in my job? Too distant? I know I've missed some of the signs, the late nights, the vague explanations. I've chosen to believe that everything is fine, that we're just in a rough patch, but the nagging doubt in the back of my mind won't go away. The door to my office swings open, breaking my reverie. It's Richard, my colleague. We've never gotten along, not since that project a few years ago, where he tried to take credit for my work. There's a smirk on his face as he strides in, uninvited, and leans casually against the wall. "Hey, Mike," he says, dragging out the words. "Got a minute?" I nod, keeping my expression neutral, though I can feel the irritation bubbling beneath the surface. Richard is the last person I want to deal with right now. "I was just out for lunch," he continues, his tone dripping with false innocence. "And guess who I saw? Your lovely wife, Claire." My heart skips a beat. I force myself to stay calm. And, he says, his smirk widening, she wasn't alone. She was with some guy. Tall, dark hair, looked pretty cozy if you ask me. They walked into the Marriott down the street, had his hand all over her. "Thought you'd want to know." For a moment I just stare at him, the words not quite registering. Then like a punch to the gut, the meaning hits me. I can feel my face flush with a mix of anger and humiliation. My first instinct is to deny it, to tell Richard he's full of shit, but the look in his eyes tells me he's enjoying this too much for it to be a simple lie. "Get out," I manage to say through gritted teeth. Richard chuckles, pushing off the wall. "Just thought you'd want to know, Mike. Hate to see a good man like you played for a fool." He saunters out of the office, leaving me sitting there, my hands clenched into fists. I stare at the door after he's gone, my mind racing. Did he really see Claire with someone else? My Claire. The thought twists my stomach, making me feel sick. Everything I thought I knew, everything I built, feels like it's crumbling beneath me. I can't get Richard's words out of my head. Every time I close my eyes, I see Claire with another man. His hand on her ass, her smiling, laughing, completely unaware that her husband is being mocked behind his back. My heart pounds in my chest as I replay the scene over and over in my mind. Each time it becomes more vivid, more painful. I need to know the truth. My hands are shaking as I pick up Claire's phone from the kitchen counter. She's in the shower, the sound of water muffling my movements. I unlock it, feeling guilty, dirty even, but I push that aside. I have a right to know. I scroll through her messages, her emails, her social media. Nothing stands out at first, just the usual chats with friends, work emails. Then I see it, a string of messages from a number I don't recognize. They're not explicit, but there's something about the tone that sends a chill down my spine. "Can't wait to see you tonight," and "same place as last time." My stomach churns. The text could be innocent, but combined with Richard's words, they're damning. I put the phone back, my mind spinning. Should I confront her now? Demand an explanation? But what if she denies it? What if she lies straight to my face? No, I need more proof. I need to see it with my own eyes. The thought of following her, spying on her like some kind of detective, disgusts me. But I know it's the only way. That evening, I tell Claire I'll be working late and watch as she gets ready to go out. She says it's just a girls' night, nothing special. But the way she dresses, tight black dress, heels she usually saves for special occasions, makes my skin crawl. She's lying. I can feel it. I follow her in my car, keeping a safe distance. My heart races with each turn, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turn white. When she pulls into the Marriott parking lot, my worst fears are confirmed. I park a few spaces away, watching as she gets out of the car and heads inside. Minutes later, a man joins her. Tall, dark hair, just like Richard described. They don't even try to hide it. He puts his arm around her waist, pulling her close as they walk inside together. I sit there, frozen. It's real. She's really doing this. My wife, the woman I've shared my life with for 10 years, is betraying me. I feel a wave of nausea, my stomach twisting into knots. But then, another emotion takes over. Rage. I want to storm into that hotel, drag them both out, and make them pay for what they've done. But I know I can't. Not yet. I wait in the car for hours, my mind racing with plans, ideas, ways to get back at them. When she finally leaves, she's alone. I follow her home, keeping my distance. I watch her go inside, then sit in the driveway for what feels like an eternity, trying to calm the storm inside me. When I finally walk through the front door, she's already in bed, pretending to be asleep. I stand there in the dark, staring at her, my fists clenched. I want to scream, to shake her awake and demand answers. But I can't bring myself to do it. Instead, I strip off my clothes and slide into bed beside her. She stirs, turning to face me, her eyes half open. "You're late," she murmurs, her voice thick with sleep. "Yeah," I reply, my voice tight. "Long day." She reaches out, running her hand down my chest, her touch soft, familiar. I feel sick. How many times has she touched him like this? How many nights has she come home to me, reeking of another man's cologne? I grab her wrist, pulling her hand away. She looks up at me, confusion flickering in her eyes. "What's wrong?" she asks, her voice tinged with concern. I want to tell her. I want to throw everything in her face, make her feel the pain that's tearing me apart. But I don't. I can't. Not yet. "Nothing," I say, forcing a smile. "Just tired." She nods, but I can see the doubt in her eyes. She turns away from me, curling up on her side. I stare at the back of her head, my mind racing. How could she do this to me? To us? I lie awake long after she falls asleep, the darkness closing in around me. Every time I close my eyes, I see them together, laughing, touching. I can't stand it. The next morning I confront her. I wait until we're both dressed, sitting at the kitchen table with our coffee. I can't hold it in any longer. "Who is he?" I ask, my voice low. Dangerous. She freezes, the cup halfway to her lips. Her eyes widen, but she quickly masks her surprise with a frown. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb, Claire," I snap, slamming my hand on the table. "I know, I saw you with him." Her face pales, the blood draining from her cheeks. She sets the cup down, her hands shaking. "Michael, Don't lie to me," I shout, the anger I've been holding back for so long finally spilling over. "I followed you last night. I saw you with him. So who is he?" She stares at me, her eyes filling with tears. For a moment, I think she's going to deny it again, but then she breaks down. She buries her face in her hands, sobbing. "I'm sorry," she whispers. "I'm so sorry." I feel a flicker of satisfaction at her confession, but it's quickly drowned out by the overwhelming sense of betrayal. "How long?" I demand, my voice cold. "Just a few months," she says, her voice muffled by her hands. "It didn't mean anything, Michael. I swear. It was just, I don't know, a mistake." "A mistake," I echo, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You call screwing another man a mistake?" She flinches at my words, her sobs growing louder. "Please, Michael, you have to believe me. It didn't mean anything. I love you, only you." "Bullshit," I snap, pushing my chair back and standing up. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have thrown everything we have away for some fling." She looks up at me, her eyes red and swollen. "I never wanted to hurt you," she says, her voice breaking. "I was just lonely. You're always working, always gone. I needed someone, and he was there." The anger surges inside me, hot and blinding. I turn away from her, pacing the kitchen. "So this is my fault? You're saying I drove you to this?" "No," she says quickly, standing up and reaching for me. "That's not what I meant. I'm just trying to explain. Please, Michael, you have to believe me. I'll do anything to make it right. I'll end it. I'll never see him again." I stop pacing, turning to face her. Her eyes are pleading, desperate. I want to believe her. I want to take her in my arms and tell her we can fix this, that everything will be okay, but I can't. The image of her with him is burned into my mind, and I know it will never go away. I need time, I say finally, my voice cold. I can't just forgive you like that. She nods, tears streaming down her face. I understand, she whispers. Take all the time you need. Just, please don't leave me. I love you, Michael. I'll do anything to make this right. I don't respond. I can't. I turn and walk out of the kitchen, leaving her standing there, broken and sobbing. I can't stay here. Not with her. I need to get out. Clear my head. I grab my keys and head for the door, not sure where I'm going, just knowing I need to get away. As I drive aimlessly through the city, my mind races with thoughts of revenge. She betrayed me, and I want to make her pay. But I know this isn't just about her. There's someone else who needs to pay too. The man who thought he could steal my wife and get away with it. He's the one who really deserves my wrath. But as the hours pass and the initial rage begins to fade, I realize something else. This isn't just about revenge. It's about control. My life has spiraled out of control, and I need to take it back. And that starts with finding out who this man really is and why Claire was drawn to him in the first place. There's more to this than just a simple affair. I can feel it. The next morning, I wake up with a sense of determination, a plan forming in the fog of my mind. I can't just sit back and let this happen. I need to know who this man is, why Claire was drawn to him, and how deep this betrayal goes. The first step is to find out everything I can about him. The second step is to make sure he regrets ever crossing my path. I sit down at the kitchen table with my laptop. The screens glow, the only light in the room. The rest of the house is still dark, the world outside just beginning to stir. Claire is still asleep upstairs, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I start with the basics, entering the phone number from the messages into a reverse lookup service. It takes a few minutes, but eventually a name pops up. Thomas Hale. The name doesn't ring any bells, but that doesn't mean much. He could be anyone. I dig deeper, searching through social media profiles, old news articles, anything I can find. The more I uncover, the darker the picture becomes. Thomas Hale isn't just some random guy. He's connected, deeply connected to a world I've only heard about in whispers. He's involved in something big, something dangerous. Drugs, money laundering, organized crime. It's all there, hidden beneath a veneer of respectability. This isn't just an affair. It's something much worse. Claire has gotten herself involved with a man who could destroy us both. My mind races with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. What if he's using her? What if she's in over her head? Or worse, what if she knows exactly who he is and what he's capable of? The thought sends a shiver down my spine. I can't let this stand. I need more information, more leverage. So I make a call to an old acquaintance, a private investigator named Paul who owes me a favor. We worked together years ago on a case that nearly cost him his license, but I kept him out of trouble. Now it's time to collect. Michael, Paul answers on the first ring. Been a while. What's up? I need your help, I say, my voice tight. There's someone I need you to look into, discreetly. There's a pause on the other end, then a sigh. You know I don't do that kind of work anymore. I'm not asking, I reply, the urgency clear in my tone. His name is Thomas Hale. I need to know everything, who he is, what he does, who he's connected to, and I need it fast. Another pause, longer this time. This sounds serious, Michael. You sure you want to go down this road? I don't have a choice, I say, my voice firm. I need to protect my family. All right, Paul finally agrees. Give me a couple of days, I'll see what I can find. I thank him and hang up, my heart pounding. It's a small step, but it feels like progress. I'm doing something. I'm taking control. But as the day drags on and the reality of the situation sinks in, I can't shake the feeling that I'm in way over my head. Claire tries to talk to me throughout the day, her eyes red from crying, her voice trembling as she begs for forgiveness. But I can't look at her, can't stand the sight of her right now. Every time I see her, all I can think about is him. Thomas Hale, the man who has torn my life apart. The anger burns inside me, threatening to consume everything in its path. That night, as we lie in bed, she reaches out to me, her hands sliding across my chest. Michael, please, she whispers, her voice broken. I love you. I know I messed up, but I'll do anything to fix this. Please, just talk to me. Her touch sends a shiver down my spine, not of pleasure, but of disgust. The image of her with Hale is seared into my mind, and I can't shake it. I grab her wrist, pulling her hand away. Don't, I say, my voice cold. Just don't. She pulls back, curling up on her side, silent tears streaming down her face. I lie there staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the silence between us. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I thought I loved, is a stranger to me now. The next day I meet Paul in a dingy diner on the outskirts of town. He slides into the booth across from me, his face set in a grim expression. He drops a folder on the table between us, nodding at it. That's everything I could find, he says, his voice low. And Michael, it's not good. I open the folder, flipping through the pages. Pictures, documents, surveillance photos. It's all there, laid out in black and white. Hale's connections to the criminal underworld run deep, deeper than I ever imagined. Drugs, weapons, money laundering. He's involved in it all, and it's clear he's a dangerous man. But there's more. Connections to powerful people, politicians, law enforcement. He's protected, untouchable. But that's not the worst of it. Paul's notes indicate that Hale's been using Claire, manipulating her for his own gain. There are records of transactions, bank transfers, all leading back to her. She's been pulled into his world either knowingly or unknowingly, and now she's trapped. What the hell is this? I ask, my voice trembling with rage. It's bad, Michael, Paul says, his voice heavy. I don't know how she got involved, but she's in deep. And if you're not careful, you're going to get caught up in it too. I feel the blood drain from my face as the enormity of the situation sinks in. This isn't just about an affair anymore. This is about survival. If Hale finds out that I'm onto him, that I know what he's been doing, he won't hesitate to take me out. And Claire, I don't even know what to think about her anymore. Is she a victim in all of this, or is she complicit? The thought tears at me, filling me with a sense of dread. What do? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Paul leans back in his seat, his eyes hard. You have two options. You can either confront Hale and risk everything, or you can walk away, forget this ever happened, and hope that he leaves you and Claire alone. And if I confront him, I ask, already knowing the answer. Paul shakes his head. He's dangerous, Michael. He's got people in his pocket, and if you go after him, you better be prepared for a fight. One you probably won't win. I sit there staring at the folder, my mind racing. I want to destroy Hale, to make him pay for what he's done to my life, to my marriage. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that I'm outmatched. This isn't a game I can win, and if I'm not careful, I'm going to lose everything. Let me think about it, I say finally, pushing the folder back towards Paul. I need some time. Paul nods, standing up. Whatever you decide, just be careful. Hale's not someone you want to mess with. I watch him leave, the weight of his words settling heavily on my shoulders. I'm in way over my head, and I know it. But I can't just walk away. Not yet. Not without a plan. When I get home, Claire is waiting for me, her eyes red from crying, her face pale. She looks at me with a mixture of fear and desperation, and I know that she's scared, maybe even more scared than I am. Michael, we need to talk, she says, her voice trembling. I nod, following her into the living room. We sit down on the couch, the tension between us thick enough to cut with a knife. What's going on, Claire? I ask, my voice cold. Who is Thomas Hale, and what the hell have you gotten yourself into? She looks down at her hands, twisting them in her lap. I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispers. It got out of control. What did? I demand, my patience wearing thin. She takes a deep breath, her eyes filled with tears. It started out as just a fling, something stupid. But then he started asking me to do things, transfer money, make calls. He said it was nothing, that it was just business. But then I started to realize that it was more than that. And by the time I wanted out, it was too late. He threatened me, said he would ruin us if I didn't do what he wanted. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She's been lying to me for months, maybe longer. But now, hearing the fear in her voice, I realize that she's as much a victim in this as I am. Hale has been using her, manipulating her, and now he's got her trapped. I stand up, pacing the room. My mind is racing, trying to figure out what to do next. I can't just sit back and let this happen. I need to find a way to get us out of this mess, to protect Claire and myself from the fallout. We're going to fix this, I say finally, my voice determined. But we need to. I can't get Paul's words out of my head. Every time I close my eyes, I see Claire caught in this web of lies and danger, and I see myself tangled in it too. I should have walked away when I had the chance, but now it's too late. I've got to confront Hale, but not without a plan. The risk is too great, and the stakes are higher than I ever imagined. I spend the next few days meticulously planning, gathering every piece of information I can from Paul's dossier. I map out Hale's routines, his known associates, the places he frequents. He's smart, always careful, but he has patterns like everyone else. The key is to catch him off guard, to make him think he's in control when he isn't. Claire senses something is up, but I've shut her out completely. I don't trust her, can't trust her, not after everything. Her betrayal still burns, but now it's mixed with a strange kind of pity. She's caught in this just like I am, maybe even worse. But I can't afford to think about that now. I have to stay focused. One night when Claire is asleep, I go through her phone again, this time looking for any clue that might give me an edge. I find nothing new, just the same damning messages, the same evidence of her deceit. But I also find something else, a desperation in her recent text to Hale, a tone that wasn't there before. She's scared, and that tells me that maybe she's finally realized how deep she's in. I decide to use that fear to my advantage. The next day I meet with Paul again, this time in a quiet bar on the outskirts of town. It's dark, almost empty, the perfect place for a conversation that no one else should hear. I need your help again, I tell him, sliding into the booth across from him. Paul looks at me, his eyes narrowing. I already told you, Michael, this is dangerous. You're playing with fire. I know, I say, my voice steady, but I've got no choice. I need to take Hale down, and I need you to help me. He sighs, leaning back in his seat. What's the plan? I outline what I've put together so far, a way to lure Hale into a trap using Claire as bait. It's risky, but it's the only way. Paul listens quietly, nodding occasionally, but I can see the doubt in his eyes. And what makes you think this is going to work? He asks when I'm done. Because it has to, I reply, my voice hard. I don't have any other options. Paul studies me for a long moment, then finally nods. All right, I'm in. But we do this my way. If things go south, we pull the plug. No questions asked. Deal, I say, relief flooding through me. We spend the next few hours refining the plan, going over every detail, every contingency. By the time we're done, I feel a strange sense of calm. It's as if everything has finally clicked into place, as if this is what I was meant to do all along. But as I drive home that night, the calm is replaced by a gnawing anxiety. What if something goes wrong? What if Hale sees through the trap? What if Claire betrays me again? I push those thoughts aside as I walk through the front door. Claire is waiting for me, sitting on the couch, her eyes puffy and red. She's been crying again, but I can't let myself feel anything for her. Not now. We need to talk, she says, her voice shaky. Later, I reply, brushing past her. I'm tired. She doesn't push, just watches me with those pleading eyes as I head upstairs. I can feel her gaze burning into my back, but I don't turn around. I can't afford to be weak. The next day, everything is set. I've arranged for Claire to meet Hale at one of their usual spots, a secluded house he keeps outside the city. Paul and I will be there waiting, ready to confront him. It's a simple plan, but it's all I've got. When I tell Claire what she needs to do, she looks at me like I've lost my mind. You want me to meet him? Are you insane? It's the only way, I say, my voice firm. We need to end this, Claire. You need to end this. Tears well up in her eyes, and for a moment I almost feel sorry for her. But then I remember what she's done, how she's lied to me, betrayed me, and the pity turns to anger. You owe me this, I say, my voice cold. You brought this into our lives. Now you need to help me fix it. She nods, defeated, and I feel a sick satisfaction at seeing her so broken. But that feeling quickly fades, replaced by a growing sense of dread. This has to work. It's our only chance. The drive to the house is tense. Claire is silent, staring out the window, her face pale. I can tell she's scared, and I can't blame her. I'm scared too, but I can't let it show. When we arrive, Paul is already there, waiting. He gives me a nod as I get out of the car, and we exchange a few last-minute details. Claire stays in the car, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. It's going to be okay, I say, leaning in the window. Just stick to the plan. She looks at me, her eyes wide with fear. Michael, I don't think I can do this. Yes, you can, I say, my voice firm. You have to. She nods slowly, and I step back, watching as she gets out of the car and heads toward the house. My heart pounds in my chest as I watch her go. Every muscle in my body tense. This is it. There's no turning back now. Paul and I move into position, hiding in the shadows near the back of the house. I can feel the sweat on my palms, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. The minutes tick by slowly, each one feeling like an eternity. Then we hear it, the sound of a car pulling up, the crunch of gravel under tires. Hale has arrived. My heart races as I peer around the corner, watching as he gets out of the car and heads towards the house. Claire opens the door, her face a mask of calm, but I can see the fear in her eyes. She's doing her part, just like we planned. Now it's up to me. I nod to Paul and we move in, silent and quick. Hale doesn't see us until it's too late. We're on him before he can react. Paul's gun pressed to his back. Don't move, Paul growls, his voice low and dangerous. Hale freezes, his eyes darting around wildly. I can see the shock on his face, the fear. But then something changes, and a slow smile spreads across his lips. Well, he says, his voice calm, almost amused. I was wondering when you'd show up, Michael. The sound of my name on his lips sends a chill down my spine. He knew. He knew all along. What the hell are you talking about? I demand, stepping forward. He laughs, a cold, hollow sound that echoes in the empty room. You really think you're the first one to try this? You think I didn't see this coming? I feel a wave of panic rising in my chest, but I force it down, trying to stay in control. Shut up. We're done here. You're going to leave Claire alone, and you're going to disappear. His smile widens and he shakes his head slowly. You don't get it, do you? I own you, Michael. I own all of this. I glance at Paul, who's looking just as unnerved as I feel. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. We were supposed to be in control. But then Hale moves, quick as lightning, and everything goes to hell. He lunges at me, knocking me to the ground, and suddenly we're grappling, my hands clawing at his throat as he fights to get the upper hand. I hear Paul shouting, the sound of a gunshot ringing in my ears, but I can't focus on anything except the man in front of me, the man who has ruined my life. We struggle, the world narrowing down to just the two of us, the hatred burning in my chest, fueling every punch, every desperate attempt to overpower him. But he's strong, stronger than I expected, and I feel my strength starting to wane. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I see Claire, standing there frozen, her eyes wide with fear. And in that moment, something snaps inside me. I find a reserve of strength I didn't know I had, and with a final desperate push, I manage to break free, grabbing the gun from Paul's hand and pointing it at Hale. Enough, I say, my voice shaking. This ends now. Hale looks up at me, his eyes cold and calculating. You don't have the guts. I pull the trigger. The gunshot echoes in the stillness, the sound reverberating through the empty house like a final, damning verdict. Hale slumps back, his eyes wide with shock, and then he's gone, crumpling to the floor in a lifeless heap. My hands tremble around the gun, the weight of what I've done crashing down on me all at once. I've killed him. I've actually killed him. Paul moves quickly, his face grim as he checks Hale's pulse, though we both know it's futile. Claire stands frozen in place, her hands covering her mouth, her eyes wide and unblinking. She doesn't make a sound, not even a whimper. She just stares at me, and in that moment, I see the enormity of what I've done, reflected back at me in her horrified gaze. "We need to get out of here," Paul says, his voice calm but urgent. "Now." I nod, unable to speak, my mind a blur of panic and regret. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. It was supposed to be a simple confrontation, a way to scare Hale off, to protect Claire and get our lives back. But now he's dead, and there's no undoing that. Paul pulls me to my feet, snapping me out of my daze. "We need to clean this up," he says, already moving to wipe down the surfaces we've touched. "We can't leave any evidence behind." I nod again, moving on autopilot as I follow his instructions. We wipe down the doorknobs, the light switches, anything we might have touched. My mind is a jumbled mess of thoughts and emotions, shock, fear, guilt, but also a twisted sense of relief. Hale is gone. He can't hurt us anymore. But at what cost? Once we're done, Paul pulls out a small canister of gasoline from his bag. He looks at me, his expression hard. "We have to burn it," he says. "It's the only way to make sure there's nothing left." I hesitate, the reality of the situation hitting me all over again. This isn't just about getting rid of evidence. This is about covering up a murder, but there's no other choice. If we don't do this, everything will unravel. I take the canister from Paul and start pouring the gasoline around the room, the acrid smell filling my nostrils and turning my stomach. Claire is still standing there, silent, her eyes glazed over like she's not even really here anymore. I want to say something to her, to reassure her, but the words won't come. When the room is drenched, Paul strikes a match and tosses it onto the floor. The flames catch quickly, spreading like wildfire, devouring everything in their path. We stand there for a moment, watching as the house goes up in flames, the heat searing our skin, before Paul pulls me toward the door. "We have to go," he says, his voice urgent. "Now!" We make our way back to the car, the roar of the fire behind us growing louder with each passing second. My heart pounds in my chest as I slide into the driver's seat, my hands shaking so badly I can barely grip the wheel. Claire gets in beside me, her movements stiff and robotic, her eyes still wide with shock. As we drive away, the reality of what we've done begins to sink in. We've destroyed everything: evidence, witnesses, any chance of ever going back to the way things were. There's no undoing this. There's no going back. The drive home is silent, the tension between us palpable. I can't bring myself to look at Claire, can't bear to see the horror in her eyes, the horror I know is mirrored in my own. My mind races with thoughts of what comes next, what we'll do, how we'll cover this up, how we'll live with ourselves after everything that's happened. When we finally pull into the driveway, Claire bolts out of the car and heads straight inside. I follow her, my legs feeling like lead, my heart still pounding in my chest. We collapse onto the couch, the weight of the day's events crushing down on us both. For a long time, neither of us says anything. The silence stretches on, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Claire breaks the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. "What have we done, Michael?" Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I don't have an answer for her. I don't have an answer for myself. All I know is that we've crossed a line we can never uncross, and there's no going back. "I didn't mean for this to happen," I say, my voice cracking. "I just wanted to protect you. I just wanted to keep us safe." "But we're not safe," she says, her voice hollow. "We'll never be safe again." She's right, of course. The truth of it is undeniable. We've gone too far, done things we can never take back. We're trapped in this nightmare, and there's no waking up from it. The next few days are a blur of paranoia and fear. Every knock on the door, every ring of the phone sends my heart racing. I keep expecting the police to show up, to drag us away in handcuffs, to expose the truth of what we've done. But no one comes. The world keeps turning, oblivious to the horrors we've unleashed. I can't go to work. I can't face Richard, can't face anyone. The thought of walking into that office, of pretending everything is normal, is more than I can bear. So I stay home, locked in this prison of my own making, drowning in guilt and fear. Claire isn't much better. She barely eats, barely sleeps. She's a shell of the woman she once was, hollowed out by the weight of what we've done. We don't talk about it, don't acknowledge the horror that lurks just beneath the surface. We just exist, side by side, trapped in this endless, suffocating silence. But as the days drag on, something starts to change. The fear that once paralyzed me begins to morph into something else. Anger. Anger at Richard, at Hale, at the whole damn world for pushing us into this nightmare. And most of all, anger at myself for being so weak, for letting it all happen. I start to feel like a caged animal, trapped in this house, in this life with no way out. The anger festers, growing stronger with each passing day, until it's all I can think about. I need to do something, to take control, to find a way to fix this mess we've made. One night I find myself pacing the living room, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge. Richard is the one who started this whole thing, the one who set it all in motion with his smug, mocking words. He's the one who knew about Claire, who pushed me into this corner. He's the one who needs to pay. But I know I can't just go after him. I've seen what happens when I let my anger take control. I can't let that happen again. I need a plan, a way to take him down without getting my hands dirty. I spend hours thinking, plotting, trying to figure out how to destroy him. But every plan I come up with feels too risky, too dangerous. I can't afford to make any more mistakes. One wrong move, and it's all over. Then, as if by some twisted stroke of fate, I get a call from Paul. He's found something big, something that could change everything. When I meet him the next day, he hands me a file, his expression grave. Inside is a stack of documents, bank statements, and emails, all linking Richard to Hale's criminal activities. It's exactly what I need. Proof that Richard is dirty, that he's been playing both sides, that he's as much a part of this mess as Hale ever was. This is it, Paul says, his voice low. This is how you take him down. I stare at the documents, my heart pounding. It's all right here, laid out in black and white. But as I look at it, a new thought creeps into my mind. What if this isn't enough? What if Richard sees it coming, finds a way to wriggle out of it like he always does? I can't take that chance. I need to be sure, need to make sure that when Richard falls, he falls hard. That night I sit down with Claire, the first real conversation we've had in days. I lay out the plan, tell her what Paul found, what I'm going to do. She listens quietly, her face pale, her eyes wide. "Are you sure about this, Michael?" she asks when I'm done. "No," I admit, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "But I don't have a choice." She nods slowly, her hands trembling as she reaches out to touch mine. "Whatever happens, I'm with you." I squeeze her hand, a small flicker of something like hope sparking in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, we can survive this. Maybe we can find a way out of this nightmare. The next morning, I make the call that will set everything in motion. I'm about to destroy Richard, about to take him down in a way that will leave no room for him to escape. But as I hang up the phone, a new fear creeps in, one that I can't shake. What if this isn't the end? What if this is just the police arrive at the scene within minutes? I'm sitting on the curb, blood on my hands, my shirt, my face. Hale's blood. Claire is beside me, trembling, her eyes fixed on the ground. The flames from the burning house still flicker in the distance, casting an eerie glow over the street. Paul is gone. He disappeared as soon as the sirens started wailing, leaving us to deal with the aftermath. I can't blame him. He warned me about the risks, and now we're caught in the middle of a nightmare with no way out. The officers ask me questions, but their words are a blur, lost in the fog of shock and exhaustion. I mumble something about self-defense, about a home invasion, but I can see the doubt in their eyes. They don't believe me. Why would they? The scene they walked into is a mess of chaos and violence, and I'm at the center of it all. They take us to the station for questioning. I sit in a sterile room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, a cup of cold coffee in front of me. The detective across from me, A man with graying hair and tired eyes watches me closely, waiting for me to break. "Why don't you start from the beginning, Michael?" he says, his voice calm but firm. "Tell me how this all started." I tell him what I can, spinning a story that's close enough to the truth to sound believable, but leaves out the parts that would bury me. I tell him about Hale, about how he threatened Claire, about how he came after us. I paint myself as the protector, the husband who had no choice but to defend his wife. But the detective isn't buying it. He leans back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "And what about Richard?" he asks, his tone sharp. "We know he was involved. We found his body in the house." My heart skips a beat. I hadn't seen Richard in the chaos of the fight, hadn't even known he was dead. But the detective's words hit me like a sledgehammer. Richard's dead, and that means everything I did, every choice I made, led to this moment. I can't deny my involvement now. The evidence is too damning. I stare at the detective, my mind racing, trying to figure out what to say, how to explain this. But there's no explanation that will save me. I'm trapped, cornered by my own actions. The detective leans forward, his eyes locked on mine. "Michael," he says quietly, "it's time to come clean. You can't lie your way out of this. Tell me the truth, and maybe we can work something out." I want to confess, to spill everything, to let the guilt and fear pour out of me. But I know that if I do, I'm signing my own death warrant. The truth is too dangerous, too twisted to ever see the light of day. So I stay silent, staring down at the table, my hands clenched into fists. The detective sighs, leaning back in his chair. "We'll continue this later," he says, standing up. "Think about what you want to say, Michael, because right now things aren't looking good for you." He leaves the room, and I'm alone with my thoughts. The weight of everything crashes down on me all at once. The deaths, the lies, the betrayal. I've destroyed everything, and for what? Revenge? Justice? I don't even know anymore. All I know is that I'm going to pay for what I've done, one way or another. Hours pass. They move me to a holding cell, cold and cramped, the bars casting long shadows across the floor. Claire is in a cell down the hall, but I can't see her, can only hear the occasional murmur of voices. I wonder what she's telling them, if she's confessing everything or holding back like I am. Part of me hopes she's spilling it all, that she'll take the weight off my shoulders. But another part of me knows that we're in this together, that she's as trapped as I am. The next morning, I'm pulled out of the cell and taken to meet with a lawyer. He's young, too young, with slicked back hair and a suit that's a little too sharp for someone defending a man like me. He sits across from me in a small windowless room, his briefcase on the table between us. "Michael," he says, his voice smooth and practiced, "I'm here to help you, but I need you to be honest with me. Tell me everything that happened, and I'll do my best to get you out of this." I look at him, at the confidence in his eyes, and I wonder if he has any idea what he's up against. But I don't have a choice. I have to trust him, have to hope that he can find a way to untangle the mess I've made. So I tell him everything. From the moment Richard walked into my office with that smug grin on his face, to the moment I pulled the trigger and ended Hale's life. I leave nothing out, not even the parts that make me look like a monster. He listens quietly, his face expressionless, taking notes as I speak. When I'm done, he closes his notebook and leans back in his chair, studying me. "This is going to be tough," he says finally. "The evidence is stacked against you. But there's a chance we can argue self-defense, that you were protecting your wife from a dangerous man." "And Richard?" I ask, my voice hollow. "What about him?" He hesitates, then shakes his head. "That's going to be harder to explain. We'll have to dig into his background, see if there's anything we can use to cast doubt on his involvement. But it's not going to be easy." I nod, the reality of the situation settling in. This is it. My life, my future. Everything is hanging by a thread, and there's nothing I can do but hope that this young lawyer can work some kind of miracle. The trial is set for a few months later. During that time, I'm released on bail, but it doesn't feel like freedom. The weight of what's coming hangs over me like a dark cloud, suffocating me. Claire and I barely speak. There's too much between us now, too much that can never be unsaid. We move around each other in the house like ghosts, each of us lost in our own private hell. The day of the trial arrives, and I walk into the courtroom with my heart pounding in my chest. The room is filled with people, jurors, lawyers, spectators, but all I can focus on is the judge sitting at the bench, the gavel in his hand, the man who will decide my fate. Claire is in the front row, her face pale and drawn, her eyes red from crying. I want to reach out to her, to tell her that everything will be okay, but I can't bring myself to lie to her anymore. The trial is a blur of testimonies, evidence, and arguments. The prosecution paints me as a cold-blooded killer, a man driven by jealousy and rage, while the defense tries to spin the story of a man pushed to his limits, a man who had no choice but to protect his wife. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between, but it's a truth that will never see the light of day. When Claire takes the stand, she looks like a shadow of the woman I once knew. She tells the court about Hale, about the threats he made, about how she was trapped in a situation she couldn't escape. Her voice is steady, but I can see the cracks in her facade, the fear lurking just beneath the surface. But then the prosecution brings up Richard, and everything starts to unravel. They have evidence, emails, text messages, records that show he was working with Hale, that he was part of the same criminal web that I tried to destroy. And they have something else. Security footage from the night of the confrontation, footage that shows me pulling the trigger, that shows Richard lying dead on the floor. The defense tries to argue that it was self-defense, that I was protecting myself and Claire from two dangerous men. But the footage tells a different story. It shows me as the aggressor, the man who went too far, the man who killed in cold blood. The jury deliberates for hours, but I know what the verdict will be before they even walk back into the room. Guilty. The word hangs in the air like a death sentence, and I feel the world collapse around me. The judge sentences me to life in prison, no possibility of parole. I don't even react. I'm numb, hollowed out by the weight of everything that's happened. As I'm led away in handcuffs, I glance back at Claire. She's standing there, tears streaming down her face, her hand covering her mouth as if she's trying to hold back a scream. I want to say something, to apologize, to tell her that I never meant for any of this to happen. But the words stick in my throat, and all I can do is nod, a silent goodbye to the life I once had. The days in prison blur together, each one a reflection of the last. I spend most of my time in my cell, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events that led me here. I see Richard's face, Hale's smirk, Claire's tears, over and over again, like a loop I can never escape. I don't know if I'll ever find peace, if I'll ever come to terms with It's been 6 months since the trial ended, and I'm still trying to make sense of everything that happened. The days drag on, each one blurring into the next. But the memories remain sharp, cutting into me like glass. I can't escape them. Hale's cold, dead eyes, Richard's lifeless body, the way Claire looked at me as the verdict was read. Guilty. The word still echoes in my mind, a constant reminder of the path I chose. I've had too much time to think in this cell, too much time to replay every decision, every mistake. I know I brought this on myself, that the blame lies squarely on my shoulders, but that doesn't make it any easier to bear. I try to tell myself that I did what I had to, that I was protecting Claire, protecting myself. But deep down, I know that's just another lie. Claire visited me once after the sentencing. She sat across from me in the cold, sterile visiting room, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes red from crying. She looked so small, so fragile, and it took everything I had not to break down right there in front of her. "I don't know what to do, Michael," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to move on from this." I wanted to tell her that it would be okay, that we'd find a way through it, but the words felt hollow, empty. I didn't know how to move on either. We sat in silence for a long time, the weight of everything we'd lost hanging heavy between us. Finally, she stood up, her eyes filled with a sorrow I couldn't bear to see. "I don't think I can come back," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Michael, but I need to find a way to live again. I need to move on." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, and watched as she walked away, disappearing through the door. leaving me behind. That was the last time I saw her. I don't blame her for not coming back. She deserves a chance to start over, to find some semblance of peace. I've lost that chance. The days are long here, the nights even longer. I've learned to navigate the unspoken rules of survival, to keep my head down, to avoid trouble. But it's not the other inmates that haunt me. It's the memories, the constant replay of what led me here. I've tried to find some way to atone for what I've done, but redemption feels out of reach. I'm not sure I even deserve it. I spend most of my time in the prison library, buried in books, trying to escape into other worlds, other lives. But no matter how hard I try, I can't escape my own mind. The guilt is always there, gnawing at me, reminding me of the lives I destroyed. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd made different choices. If I'd walked away when I first found out about Claire and Hale. If I'd let Richard's taunts roll off my back instead of letting them fester. But it's too late for what-ifs. The path I chose has led me here, and there's no going back. But there's something else that keeps me up at night, something darker. I can't shake the feeling that this isn't over, that there's still more to come. The shadows in this place play tricks on your mind, whispering secrets in the dead of night. I've heard things, seen things that make me wonder if Richard's reach extends even here, beyond the grave. I know it sounds crazy, but there's a part of me that believes it, a part of me that knows I'll never truly be free of him. And then there's Claire. I try not to think about her, about where she is, what she's doing, but the thoughts creep in, unbidden, driving me mad with worry. Is she safe? Has she found a way to move on? Or is she still trapped in the same nightmare that I am? I don't know what the future holds for me, or if there even is a future. I've lost everything, my freedom, my marriage, my sense of self. But there's one thing I haven't lost, the need to understand why this all happened, the need to find some semblance of closure, even if it's just for my own peace of mind. I'm not sure if that's possible, if I'll ever be able to make sense of the chaos that tore my life apart. But I know I have to try, because if I don't, then what's the point of any of this? What's the point of surviving if I'm just going to rot away in this cell, consumed by the ghosts of my past? So I keep going, one day at a time, one step at a time, hoping that somewhere down this dark road, I'll find the answers I'm looking for. Or at the very least, a way to make peace with the man I've become. The world outside moves on without me, and I'm left behind, trapped in the wreckage of my own making. But there's a part of me that's still fighting, still searching for a way out of this darkness. Maybe that's all I have left, a flicker of hope, a sliver of determination. I don't know where it will lead me, or if it will lead me anywhere at all, but I hold on to it because it's the only thing keeping me from drowning in the abyss. And as I sit here, staring out through the bars, the sun setting in a sky I can barely see, I can't help but wonder if there's still a chance for redemption, for some kind of new beginning. I don't know if I deserve it, but maybe that's not for me to decide. All I can do is keep moving forward, one step at a time, and hope that somehow, somewhere down this road, I'll find a way to make things right, or at least a way to live with what I've done.